Jeffrey was so easy as a child. He was so much a part of like the perfect blend of me and of Chris. I remember when he was really little, I took him into Crestline one day and we took pictures. I took pictures of him, and people started calling him the mayor of Mountain Brook because he was little and he was so friendly and so bold and speaking to everybody. He loved music and played the piano beautifully. He worked really hard at piano. He practiced all the time, and he had all these recitals and that he was really prepared for. And so he had this really strong, determined spirit. He had an amazing wit for a little kid, and he would just say the funniest things. When he was in the hospital, his iron was low, and he got a bag of bugles as a snack. And the doctor walked in and was saying one thing and another, very serious man, and Jeffrey said, "Too bad I don't need brass in my diet." And the doctors looked at him, and then after a minute he realized that that really was a joke, and he laughed. That was so funny, and that was just so Jeffrey. One of the nurses said to me that he was like a prince. He had this grace and thankfulness, and the nurse who was with him the night before he died said that he thanked her all night long. Everything she did for him, he would say thank you. The best he could with a tube, intubation tube in his throat. So that was Jeffrey. When Jeffrey, right after he died, I spent a lot of time alone, really emotional, and I really needed things to look forward to. So I remember when people would schedule, you know, let's have coffee, or let's have lunch, or let's go for a walk. That those things were like stepping stones through the waters, and I would really have to get myself, you know, psyched up and put on that armor and get ready to go. But it was a blessing to have people who would be with me and had the courage to be with me and let me grieve or let me talk about silly things. There were so many people who spoke to my heart and helped me find my way. I remember the support from the church and my small group Bible study when they invited me to come meet them in Martha's garden. And they had really prepared a prayer, and we just sat together and prayed and were together for just a minute. They knew that there was so much happening and family coming over, and but they just asked me for half an hour, and one of them picked me up and brought me to this sacred moment. It was very helpful. They also did really practical things, such as one of them bought me a robe. I didn't have a robe, and she knew that there would be all kinds of people visiting, and times when I wasn't really quite able to just get fully dressed. So I had this great full-length robe because of their care, and she bought me shoes to wear to the funeral. And they served the food at the visitation. So that kind of support was so remarkably helpful. And I remember I learned that my nephew had the gift of presence. I wrote him a note and told him that because he showed up for me during the visitation in a way that I found remarkable. He was maybe 16, 17, and he stood behind me as people came by and spoke to us. And if I looked like I needed something, he got it for me, and if I had a big wad of Kleenex, he took it in his hand, you know? That kind of thing was where I saw God's grace. I have so many Bible quotes and things that I read and songs that I heard and words that were spoken. Those are the things that stick with me and that I go back to. I remember trying so hard to be the mom and be strong, as if he were still there watching me and following my cues. And it was a long time before I finally got to the point where I could just be very sad. And I think one of the things that I have learned kind of in hindsight to be able to identify is that you live the life that you now have, that new normal or living on in spite of, but you eventually receive the Spirit that you need to live that life. Like the disciples at Pentecost. They lost Jesus and they had to live the new life that was their reality, but eventually they received the Spirit for that life that they were already living. And I think this idea that I hung on to about being called to rise, at the heart of our faith is the Easter story and the Easter mystery. And it starts with death, but it ends with resurrection. So for us, it took a long time, but I think for anyone who goes through a huge loss, it's the same story. And I think that the story of Jesus, his death and resurrection, and the story of his disciples, Jesus is our reason for wanting to rise, to be resurrected, and he is our model for resurrection, and he is our source of everything that we need to be able to do it.